can't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Eevee and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. Today's video, I'm going to be talking about Nightcrawlers #1 by Si Spurrier and Paco Medina. This issue is really not what I was expecting it to be. I knew the story would be about a group of characters who are clones of Nightcrawler but mixed with other mutants and other heroes' DNA to basically put together the titular Nightcrawlers. I wasn't really expecting this one to go quite in the direction that it was going to go, but I guess I should have seen it coming a country mile away, considering that it's Si Spurrier who is writing it, and they have been very large and in charge on Nightcrawler's side of things, with the X-Men having gone back to Way of X as well as Legion of X. Whereas Storm and the Brotherhood of Mutants is almost like a direct sequel to X-Men Red, Nightcrawlers is a direct sequel to Legion of X. This is a tale that takes place in year 10 of the Sins of Sinister story arc and follows the exploits of Banshee, who recently bonded with Vox Ignis, the Spirit of Variance, which, for those unfamiliar, is a mutant Spirit of Vengeance. The Spirit of Vengeance being something typically associated with the Ghost Rider. And Banshee runs afoul of Sinister's Legion of the Night, a gang of assassins all outfitted with Nightcrawler's DNA, as well as various other mutants and superheroes. We see versions of Toad, Domino, Pyro, Wolverine, the Laura Kinney edition, Colossus, Sabretooth, and even Spider-Man, all under Sinister's control, until Banshee and Vox Ignis are able to use their Scream of Change. The Spirit of Variance's version of the Penance Stare, whereas a typical Ghost Rider uses the Penance Stare to make a person relive all the pain, suffering, and harm that they have inflicted upon others in their life, the Scream of Change does exactly what it says on the tin. It forces a person to undergo a very powerful change, and in this case, the change is undoing Sinister's genetic imprint on each of these clones, in essence giving each of them free will. Now, it doesn't work on all of them, but it does work on most of them. And despite working, it only works so well on some of them, whereas the ones who are mutants, it actually tends to work on them way better than it does on someone who might, say, be derived from a human mutate like Spider-Man. Whereas over the course of this issue, we notice that some of the other Nightcrawlers do mention still hearing Sinister's voice in the back of their head, trying to convince them to do terrible things. We do also recognize that the Spider-Man version of Nightcrawler, dubbed Wallcrawler in this issue, is hearing it more than any of the other ones and feels like he's going to lose control of himself back to Sinister very soon. Now, what is the whole point of all these Nightcrawler clones? If you have not been keeping up, over the course of the Legion of X series, Mother Righteous reveals in this issue that she was the one who ultimately broke the curse on mutant kind that Orchis had contracted Marguerite Zardos, Nightcrawler's adopted mother, who unleashed the monstrous natures of all of mutant kind's X genes by way of magic, so Orchis could label mutants as monsters both figuratively and literally. And now that Mother Righteous has done this, she's also using the Spirit of Variance to undo the Sinister clones' programming and take these wayward clones who have now defected from Sinister and turn them into her holy thieves. Which is not difficult considering that they're all based on Nightcrawler's DNA, so of course they would want to champion some sort of religious or faith-based cause, and what better cause could there be than Mother Righteous, who literally thrives on faith. Mother Righteous is also responsible in this issue for taking down Dr. Stasis, albeit she doesn't do it directly, but through her newly reformed Nightcrawlers. This is pretty much the reveal I had been expecting since Mother Righteous revealed herself as a Sinister clone. But not just a Sinister clone, but one that does not have illusions about being the original Nathaniel Essex and knows for a fact that the other three Sinisters are not originals either. But this is also where we learn how all three of the male Sinisters, both Orbis Stellaris, Dr. Stasis, and Sinister proper, were obsessed with achieving Dominion status, and right now, Orbis Stellaris, thanks to his world farm and his progenitors, he is the closest to achieving it than any of the other Sinisters to date. and now that he has access to Sinister's Moira clones, which were stolen by Mystique and Destiny during Storm and the Brotherhood of Mutants #1, these clones now trapped within the World Farm and hidden behind an impenetrable wall of chimeric X-gene powers, likely ranging from mutants like Eunice the Untouchable and Carmella Uniceon to other characters like Skids and Armor. The only way to potentially penetrate that shield and get the Moiras back to undo Sinister's mess is the Nightcrawlers, but the shields can't be breached even with teleportation, as we learn when Wallcrawler sacrifices himself to test the efficacy of those barriers. So now she needs the Nightcrawlers to steal several powerful magic Macguffins in the Marvel Comics universe. Now, I'll admit, most of these I'm fairly familiar with what they are, but there are at least one or two that I'm not 100% on, but they are as follows: the Darkhold, which is the Dark Book of Chthon made by Chthon himself and has long been a thorn in the sides of the Marvel Comics heroes, namely the Midnight Suns. There's also the Siege Perilous, which was given to the X-Men by Roma, the daughter of Merlin, back in Uncanny X-Men number 227, and this is a reality warping device whose initial purpose was to give the X-Men a chance to completely start over their lives if being superheroes became way too much trouble. There's also Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, that was recently reforged by the angels in heaven after Thor broke it fighting the Mother Storm, who now goes by the moniker the God of Hammers. This version of Mjolnir also has Odin's soul bound within it. We also see what is very likely Excalibur, which is not only one of the most famous swords within the history of both fantasy and myth, but also is a very powerful sword in the realm of the Marvel Comics universe as well, and is largely associated with Captain Britain. We also see what is very likely the legendary Bloodstone, often associated with both Elsa and her father Ulysses' Bloodstone. We also see what I think could potentially be the Mind Stone of the legendary Infinity Stones. We also have the Crown of Tentacles, which is an artifact I don't think we have seen since the Secret Avengers series from the early 2010s. This one was kind of a weird one because it's also an artifact that's gone by a couple of different names, one of which is also the name of another artifact. Normally it's called the Crown of Tentacles, but it has also been referred to as the Serpent Crown, which is a whole other thing altogether. But this artifact has been trapped in the microverse since the last time we saw it in Secret Avengers number 32 in 2012. And while its powers are, for all intents and purposes, pretty nebulous, it's an alien artifact that was created by Martians that's largely associated with a dark entity known as the Abyss and allows its wearer to channel the power of the Abyss's dark children. And we also see what I think could potentially be Vision's solar gem. It could also be something else. I'm not 100% certain on exactly what this one is, but that's the best guess that I can come up with. But Mother Righteous is, for all intents and purposes, the hero of the many Sinisters. Now, while she does admit that the other Sinister, the Diamond Sinister, is also technically on their side, that he's not necessarily going to do anything about what's going on with Orbis Stellaris and Dr. Stasis until it suits his purposes. So right now, Mother Righteous is the one true hero among the Essex that is actually trying to undo what Orbis Stellaris is perpetrating. Orbis Stellaris has no intention of this timeline being undone, hence why he had the Moira clones stolen, because this is going to be the moment that Orbis Stellaris is going to potentially achieve Dominion status. He's already well on his way to doing that, already possessing the World Farm. And for those who have not been keeping up, the World Farm is described in this issue is already being classified as a stronghold, and a stronghold is just one step away from being a full-fledged Dominion. If Orbis Stellaris can do that, one of two things is going to happen. Either this is going to attract the Phalanx, or could very likely cause the Phalanx to not want to bother messing with Orbis Stellaris. It could go one of two different ways. But to become Dominions, you would basically turn your society into a living singularity. Becoming Dominion basically means you become, for all intents and purposes, a god. It's long been my theory that Sinister was trying to achieve Dominion status largely because he was trying to avoid being consumed by the Phalanx. But it could be just as well that Orbis Stellaris is maybe trying to do the same, but for very different reasons. But what we do know is that the Phalanx is coming. They are attracted to intelligent species and societies, and they want nothing more than to absorb those societies into themselves and increase their own power. And the general idea is that if one were to become a Dominion, they would almost be too much trouble for the Phalanx to even bother with. And it would effectively render whoever was a part of that Dominion society to be immortal, to exist and perpetuate forever, even if it was as a collective. So yeah, this is kind of where it all gets really weird and off the wall. It's kind of one of the reasons why I've often said this was my least favorite part of Powers of 10, even though I'm a huge fan of the Phalanx. It was almost like, oh my God, this is breaking my brain to even think about. But that's what's going on here. And once again, I don't think Mother Righteous is completely a hero in this. I think she definitely has her own agenda going on here, because the more people she can save, the more people she can bring to her side, like she has already done with the Nightcrawlers, getting them to believe in her, to have faith in what it is she's doing. This is what's gonna elevate her to even higher God tier status, which honestly, she's kind of already there. So in a roundabout way, she's very likely trying to become a Dominion in her own right, but not doing it through scientific means, but doing it through means of sorcery. I could easily see that being one of the angles that's being worked here, but we do know that whatever happens, all four Sinisters are going to wind up working together in some capacity or another. We know this because of the upcoming The Sinister 4 series that's going to be written by Kieran Gillen, so we know that this is happening. It's not going to be a surprise that any of these Sinisters are going to work together here in the near future, but I do find it interesting that Orbis Stellaris wanted Dr. Stasis dead, and Mother Righteous was the one who supplied the Nightcrawlers to make it happen. And it just goes to show that the Sinisters can't trust one another. It's like you just can't. I mean, they're too evil and way too self-serving. And I think we even saw this in Sins of Sinister #1, where the Sinister Council, they eventually became so out of pocket that even Sinister Prime didn't want to deal with them anymore. And one thing that's definitely worth talking about, but I might do this in a separate video because there's just really a lot to digest there, but everything going on with Nightcrawler that's being addressed in this issue, the fact that his mutation, his secondary mutation has continued to perpetuate, even after Mother Righteous had broken the spell that his adopted mother had cast on all mutants, it's one of those situations where I wonder where they're gonna go with this, like if this is gonna lead to a new status quo for Nightcrawler. Not saying he's gonna be a mindless monster, but somewhere down the road, he's gonna come out of this. Technically, he could be returned back to normal. It's even stated in this issue that he could be brought back to his normal, usual blue self, even without the horns. However, the only way it could be done now is if he were killed and then resurrected. But right now, the only person who has access to the resurrection protocols is Sinister. So he's not going to resurrect Nightcrawler. He doesn't even seem to have any interest in resurrecting Nightcrawler or fixing him, as we see in the data pages in this issue. The only thing about Nightcrawler that seems to be of interest to him is Nightcrawler's teleportation abilities, even noting that Nightcrawler has some of the most accurate teleportation acumen of any mutant, which is pretty impressive considering that there are other characters who can teleport further and with better accuracy. So it does make one wonder what exactly is the evidence that Sinister has that he's operating on, because typically Nightcrawler's range is limited and there is a margin for error if he's going somewhere he's never been before. Characters like Manifold can actually teleport wherever he wants to, because he just can. He can teleport without error to a place he's never even been to. Whereas Nightcrawler still has the weakness that he could end up stuck inside of something if he doesn't know exactly where he's going. He doesn't necessarily have to see it, but he at least has to know the layout. So I do wonder exactly what Sinister's getting at here, but at the end of the day, teleportation is going to be the key to getting back those Moira clones, but also magic is going to be key to making teleportation more viable than it is currently. That's everything I really wanted to talk about with Nightcrawlers #1. I really like this book. It was really fun. I like Mother Righteous. I was initially kind of on the fence about Mother Righteous at first, but she's starting to grow on me as a character. I'm actually starting to enjoy her. She's just hilarious. And seeing her interact with the other Sinisters is also pretty fun as well. But I do also foresee Banshee and Vox Ignis catching on to what Mother Righteous is doing. It just kind of seems obvious at this point that initially Banshee was the only one who was kind of questioning Mother Righteous, and as the course has come and goes, Vox Ignis is like, oh yeah, I see what you're talking about now. And it's funny that it took 10 years for it to get to this point, because initially Banshee seemed kind of bought in with what Mother Righteous was selling, and it's taken this long for Banshee to come to that conclusion, and almost just as long for Vox Ignis to come to this conclusion, because you gotta remember, this takes place 10 years from the present day. But anyways, if you enjoyed this video, do the YouTube thing, like, share, comment, subscribe, and make sure you tap that notification bell so that way you don't miss out on any videos that I put out. The goal is to hit 100,000 subscribers on YouTube in 2023, and I can't do that without you, Earth's mighty subscribers of the present, liking and commenting on the videos and sharing them everywhere, as well as you, Earth's mighty subscribers of the future, clicking that big red button. In the meantime, let me know what you thought about Nightcrawlers #1. Keep it plus ultra, and sound off in the comments.